There, everybody. It is that time again. It's your Monday night, which means it's
Marriage Monday, and we're very excited to be back with you. It's been a few
Marriage
weeks.
Monday. Welcome back, everybody, and this is, welcome back to us, too. We've been gone for a couple of weeks.
Yep.
You've been gone for a couple of weeks, but we're back here at the big sound stage at Milestone, and we're talking about marriages. We're going to talk about ours. We're going to talk about yours, and hopefully we are going to do some good. We're going to help a little bit.
Yeah.
We always say about marriages, at least whenever we do our episodes together on Marriage Monday, that it's what? A good
It's
time
a
to
great
do what?
time to have a reset.
A great time to have a what?
A reset.
Ah, you see what we're doing?
I mean, you can always use a reset, no matter what, right?
I'm trying to point at the T-shirt.
Yes.
Yeah,
I
so
think
it's a good time
I think
for...
they see the T-shirts. They're pretty obvious.
All right, so anyway, it's a good time for a reset. And it is great to have all of you that are with us here. We've got some people that are, of course, we're broadcasting on YouTube, and we're live streaming actually, and we're in and around the GTA, the Greater Toronto Area, but we know we've got lots of people that watch kind of all around the country of Canada and also all around the world. So we want to say hi to all of you. And if you're watching live, it's really good to have you here, and we're going to be engaging with you in just a minute. But if you're not watching live, you're watching this maybe a little bit later, really glad to have you with us, and we hope that what we talk about with marriage is going to be helpful.
And Kevin,
you.
I didn't mean to cut you off with the T-shirts because you made these T-shirts, so they're really great T-shirts.
All right, that's a very nice marriage thing you did right there.
Caught myself.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We want to go through tonight and talk a little bit, like I said, about marriages. But before we do, we want to kind of direct your attention to the screen. Here's what we did. We got a whole bunch of people that we're going to be showing on the screen. Hopefully you'll be able to see it. And as we engage you, maybe you can drop it in the chat if you can figure out this. Now, some of you who are on tonight are actually going to be, you submitted pictures to us. But we're going to show you pictures of a whole bunch of people, and they all have one thing in common.
Yes.
One thing in common.
Yes.
So put it in the chat. Try to guess what is the one thing in common that all these people have. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? So watch the screen behind us. We've got some people here. These are
very nice,
faithful watchers of the Marriage Monday episodes. Good people and equally handsome.
Well, they're both wearing glasses. There's two glasses.
Oh, yeah, I see you're trying to guess.
Yeah,
so go ahead if you can guess. Here's some more people here. Oh, look at there's a newly born baby.
She's so gorgeous.
That's right.
Oh, my goodness.
Good to have there. We thought about naming all of you, and then we're
going to hold back.
We're holding back saying everybody's names
difficult.
because who knows what kind of internet fraud could happen if we mention all of your names.
Yes. Yep.
Anyways, good to see.
Yep.
Oh, there's our good friends. These are people all
more
in the
glasses.
Mississauga and Brampton area.
Yeah, that's right.
So what do these people all have in common? What do you think?
Nice smiles.
Oh, there's some cute people right there. I know all of those. This is kind of the young married section right here. Yeah. And others, look at there. This is not the young married section, right?
Well.
Sorry, guys.
Young in heart.
Yeah, but look at that picture behiund. Can I say his name?
No,
look behind Richmond.
Don't say anyone. You're not supposed to.
Very angelic. He's got a halo going on there. And look at this.
Oh.
The young marrieds and the old marrieds in this here. What do you think these people all have in common? Oh,
a lot of glasses.
Speaking of young and old.
Yes.
There's some young marrieds.
Yes.
And some
really nice smiles.
Old marrieds.
Really nice smiles.
All right. So we're kind of getting to the end of it here at Marriage Monday. Another handsome couple.
Okay.
So you tell us, or we'll take a look to any of you. What do you think these people all have in common? One person suggested they have blended relationships.
Okay.
He's probably not wrong. If you're married, you got to blend your relationship at some point or another. I'm not sure if that's what you meant, but that's not what we were going for.
And Bimala says they're all married.
They're all married. You're not wrong there, but that's not what we were looking for. Someone else says they're all beautiful people.
And she's one of them. So.
Yeah, so I think that's out of bounds right there. Anyways, that's not it. Here's the thing that you need to know about all the people that were on those pictures that we just looked at. They all, well, you tell us. What did they all do?
Okay, well, all those couples, beautiful, great smiles, and beautiful children, but they all had a fight last week.
They all
had a fight.
They all had a fight last week?
Yeah.
That's awful. That's terrible. What kind of people would have a marriage and fight with the person they're in love with? Well, here's the answer to that. everybody, right? And that's what we
True.
really wanted
That's
to show
true.
you. If you go back, if we went back over to some of the slides, which we won't, I think the really cool thing and the theme that we want to get you to see tonight is that everybody has fights. And that's why tonight is entitled, Have a Good Fight.
Yes, yes.
Everybody has fights, but not, if you looked at all those people, they all didn't look worse for their fights.
And you
right?
want to know why?
Tell me why.
Because they all know how to reset.
I see how you're pulling in.
I know.
They all know how to reset.
I'm trying to make up for no.
Maybe they'll order a shirt off us.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the low, low price of $85, you can have a shirt like this. Just kidding. All right, let's keep going here. But you know, it's really interesting that every single person who is married, I know we're not telling you anything you don't already know, but every person who is married is going to have a fight. And some of us in the different kind of worlds that we live in, we have different names for fights. Right?
True.
What do we call them? Because some of us don't like the name fight. We don't fight. So what do we do?
They should put in the chat what you call your fights, but some people
that's
call
a good
them
thing.
A bump. I'm sure that we'll see
We
that
have
in
a
the chat.
bump.
We had a bump. Yes.
All right. A disagreement, you know, all these different things, right? So we want to talk a little bit about the fact that this is a reality. What I loved about those
true.
pictures is that not so much that everybody who was pictured there had a fight. That's almost a give me.
Yeah.
But I really loved how everybody was still in love. They were still
Yeah.
charming. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, because you're an old sourpuss, well, that's just because they were doing a selfie and that's why they were smiling, and maybe they went back to not smiling afterwards. But we know most of those people, and they're smiley people, aren't they?
Yes,
they're
they
all
are.
pretty good.
Yep.
They got some good integrity
Yep.
there.
Good people.
So we're going to talk tonight about having a good fight, or have a good fight. That's the title of
Yes.
things. And maybe you could talk a little bit about the play on words there with that title in case somebody can't pick it out.
Oh, well, you know, you could have a good fight. Like, ooh, it was a doozy of a fight that we had. We had a good fight. And that
Old time.
doesn't necessarily mean
Yeah,
great.
not
But
good.
yeah, or you can have a good fight, a fight that was productive, that crucial conversations happened, and you know, you were able to get some problems out, complaints out on the table and resolve them.
Can you see my eyebrows are raised? Because I think for some of us, we're like, really? Can you really have a good fight?
Yes,
like a
you
really
can.
productive fight. That was a good fight. And that was really helpful, can we? So this is what we want to talk about. We want to talk in this next little bit as we set the stage. Let's have some thoughts and some thoughts about fights, about disagreements, about complaints that you might have in your marriage to your spouse, or bumps or whatever other names that we call misunderstandings. So let's talk
disagreements.
Let's talk about that a little bit. What are
a mood? Someone says a mood.
Oh my goodness! Well, if you're going to call moods fights, then we're in a constant state of mood in our marriage. But yeah, we all call it. It's fair. I didn't mean to pick on you if that was the thing. But
It was your
this.
daughter you just picked on anyway.
Easy peasy. Yeah, no problem there. So let us talk about this. What would you say, Lisa, about when it comes to the issue of fights? What would you say about this?
Well, I think that it is good to have healthy fights in a marriage, and that it's impossible to journey through life together without having issues and disagreements, because we're not the same person. That we're married to someone different than ourselves, and we're going to have different wants and desires and expectations, and so I think that it's absolutely natural that there's going to be fights, good fights.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that we love
Conflict.
They're guaranteed, always is.
Yes.
One of the things that we love about the person we fall in love with is that they're so much different than us. And that really draws us to them. We find it engaging, we find it exciting, we find it thrilling, we find it obsessive. They're so different than us, and I just love it. And then you get married to them after a while. The very things that are very different about them to you become what? The irritant in your life. You know, there's an old show, very, very famous show, right? Seinfeld. But there was an old show, an old episode in the Seinfeld episode, and the humor of it was that Jerry, the star of the show, started dating a woman, and she was exactly like him, and everybody around like, can't you see it? And he's like, of course, the famous quote from the show is that, I finally realized who I spend the rest of my life with. It's me.
Oh.
Now that's humorous in a comedy special, but it just doesn't work that way in life, right?
Not usually.
First of all, you're not going to meet anybody just like you, and if you could, I bet you couldn't stand you if you had to live with you all the time. And
probably
so,
true.
Because of all this diversity, because of all this difference, because of our differences, of course, fights are going to come, disagreements are going to come, complaints are going to come. And what we want to propose here before we really get rolling is that, as Lisa said, when those kind of things happen, there's a good way to have to go through it.
Yes, yes, yes.
And in fact, we'd like to say to you that fights are essential.
Yes.
Can we say that?
Yeah.
The fights are actually necessary, or whatever you want to call it, bumps. Bumps are actually necessary. Disagreements are actually necessary, and even complaints are necessary. Because, well, let's look at a quote that someone that we have here. And we're not sure if you guys can see it on the screen, but we'll read it out to you. This is an author that you were reading, Lisa, Terrence Real. You wanted to give us the quote?
You cannot create an extraordinary relationship unless you're willing to do the hard work of identifying what it is that you want and pursuing it. It's a mouthful. It's a mouthful, but I think I get it.
So tell us what it means. I mean, we know what it means, but what do you think it means?
Well, the word extraordinary just to me means something, you know, you have a relationship that at the beginning is amazing, but then to keep it growing and being amazing, as we've often titled these series Amazing Love, you have to keep growing, and that's difficult because, you know, two people, like Kevin was saying, are not the same, and they have different expectations, different desires, wants, and, you know, unless you're willing, even just as an individual, to figure out what you want, which is sometimes difficult, to figure out what you want. And sometimes you want something and, you know, it's missing the mark, but you don't even know what you want, and you haven't communicated to your spouse what you want. And together, you have to bring all those wants and reconcile them and figure out how to achieve what you both want, which, wow, that's a lot of work of compromising and you know, but I guess the opposite would be settling, you know, just kind of like, you know, this is what I got, and not working towards what you want.
We do want to engage you again in the chat, because we're kind of putting out a thesis here. We're kind of saying, you know, that fights aren't necessarily bad. Now, we are going to say in just a second that some fights are bad, right? Fights that go too far, fights that get abusive, fights that lead to toxicity. They're not good. They're not good at all.
Those would be bad fights.
And we'll get into that.
We're talking about good fights tonight.
Yeah, that's exactly right. What a great way to say it. But then there's also bad is also no fights at all, especially because of this quote here, right? If you want to do something extraordinary, if you want to go somewhere in this relationship, and I'm not talking about move somewhere, buy a trailer home and drive, that's not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about being all that you can be in your relationship with your spouse. You want to do that, it's going to take some hard work. If it's going to take some hard work, you're not going to see eye to eye, or you need to say, I dream this, I want to go here, what do you think? Where do you think we should go? That's the hard work. So drop in the chat if you agree or disagree, because I think some of you might be going, I don't know. So here's our question. Do you agree that fights are good? And if you do, justify your answer. And if you don't, justify your answer. I don't think they're good for this. Or I do think they're good for this reason. And while you're dropping that in the chat, we want to give you another quote as well. And this is from a Dr. Matt Eschler is his name. And I'll go ahead and read it. But do listen to this if you can. I know I just asked some of you to type. But if you can do it, multitask. Clearly, it'll be the woman who's listening and typing, and the guy just stare here and listen to this quote. Listen to this, though. If there is, or if there's no conflict, there's no investment. If you're not investing, then you're not digging. So conflict is healthy to a relationship. Now remember the title, and it's going to be on the screen for the rest of the night. The title, we have to keep reminding you, is Having a Good Fight. And he's kind of making this appeal here that we want to just drive home this point one more time. Here's what we're learning as we certainly consume lots of studies out there. Gottman says it as well, and we've told you guys lots about Gottman. It seems anybody who does anything marriage anywhere on the internet
Gottman comes up everywhere.
You're going to reference the great Dr. Gottman.
Have to meet him someday.
He's done amazing work, all very scientific work on marriages and what works in marriage and what doesn't work in marriage. But Gottman will assert that if you're going to have a marriage that's going to make it, there will be fights along the way. In fact, they're necessary. Also, he'll assert the fact that complaints need to come. A relationship that does not have fights, complaints, is a relationship that, get a load of this, is not going to make it.
And I think it's not really, you know, engaging. You're not really, if you're not having any of that, you're probably not engaging either. And I just think fighting is important just for remaining close and intimate, because, you know, there's no way that we can stay close and intimate without having bumps and, you know, that's, you know, not the way I want things, or that's the way you want, you know, and just all kinds of things come up when you're In fact, I think I've read lots of places that really a marriage with no fighting is kind of a passionless marriage.
Ah.
You know, because the closer you want to get, the more passionate you are about each other, the more you're just going to come up against so many different ways of thinking and feeling about everything, and preferences and personalities, and well, we're going to get into more of that, but yeah.
Don't want a passionless marriage. It seems I'm not able to read all this. It's going by so fast. You guys are amazing. But it seems most people are agreeing with us, and I don't know if that's just because they're yes people or they're really agreeing with us. But I think, if anything, if you're saying that fights are no good, there's a whole lot of married people watching right now and a whole lot of married people watching later after the live stream. They're in a big amount of trouble because we all do have these kind of conflicts in our relationship. And Lisa talked about passion and not having a passionless marriage. And the great thing about fights too, if you play your cards right, well, there's make-up sex. So that's really good too. That wasn't in our notes, but that just came to my mind.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's very true.
So there's lots of good reasons to have a good fight. A good fight, right? So let
I'm so
us
curious
continue.
about reading. I see all these comments. I want to read them now.
We're kind of foolish. We ask you to jump into the chat with us, and then we're not able to really.
We always read them later.
You guys
I'm telling you. That's the truth.
There.
We do. We always read them later. Wow, that's great. Fights are good because they help you understand your spouse's point of view, and you get better in your relationship through them. I totally agree. Even that marriage in general makes us better people. It would be a lot easier to not be married sometimes and just be who you want to be. But being married forces you to go to places and
that's why we love marriage so much, why we love talking about it every time that we come on here. I was going to say every week. We're not here quite every week now, but every time that we're together. And certainly we've done big marriage events in our life where we've spoken at them. And it's not because it's like, oh, it's just so simple and that's why we love to do it.
No.
But actually just the opposite, right? Marriage is so very, very challenging, but it's so incredibly rewarding. And if you don't have to be married in this life, but if you choose to be married, you're signing up for a really exciting opportunity to refine your character, but also for that word to be refined, it means, hey, you are going to have to do some work. So the worst kind of marriage that you could possibly have is thinking to yourself that I'm okay and it's just you that is the problem, right?
Ah, yes, absolutely.
No refining happens when you do that.
Yeah, I think, and we have a great scripture, actually, that you're making me think of the next scripture that we wanted to show.
So I should click.
You should, yeah.
Right.
A wonderful scripture. In fact, that's where I wanted to share that marriage absolutely makes you better. And this scripture kind of highlights, I love the analogy here.
Yeah, well, read it for us, and then...
As iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another person. And I think it's the sharpening process that can be really uncomfortable, and sparks can fly, and I just love that analogy. You know, it really describes kind of a fight in a way. You know, two people come together, and there's just not the same. There's tension. There's bumps. I guess that's why you call it bumps. And on the other side of it, though, if you have good fights, on the other side of it, you are better people. So that's exciting. And
can you imagine? Can you imagine? I mean, let's just channel. We don't even have to go far back. Think. Okay, I know you're all staring at digital screens right now. Some of you are kind of doing one thing, and maybe you're watching Monday Night Football, and this is on as well. But just for a second, come to us. The plays will happen after that. But
don't remind them about football.
Yeah, I just reminded myself about football. Anyways, but can you imagine that this last frustration that you had, and you did, this last argument that you had, and you did, and right, let's be honest, you don't have to think that many days ago, do you? Like Lisa, for the last argument, fight, complaint, mood that you and I had, do you have to go 5 days ago?
No, I don't. I just have to go.
3,
I just have
2.
I just have to go to any Marriage Monday that we're doing, and I can tell you about.
Why, just an hour ago. But isn't this the amazing thing when you go back in time and think about your last whatever frustration that you had, the last good fight that you had, or even bad fight that you had, if you could actually view it, because they're such a source of irritation, aren't they? Don't
they
you just
really
feel like,
are in the middle of it.
Why are you and then many times for me, why am I?
Very inconvenient.
You know what I never think about? Right now I'm being sharpened. I never think about that. I think just the opposite. When we're in the midst of a good fight.
And I feel passionate.
No, you don't. I can tell you don't. I mean, later you do, when we apologize.
I mean, right now I feel passionate about you because it was a good fight that we had today. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Well, thanks and good night, everybody. We'll see you later. But anyways, I'm just saying I don't feel sharpened. I don't feel sharper. In fact, I feel duller. I feel frustrated. I feel stupid. I feel, I have
In
a
the
lot
middle
some
of it.
self-loathing. Like, why do I do that? Why did I do it again? We're going to talk about that in just a
Yes.
little bit. But
Well, let's-
isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing that, and we just never think about it. Yes, fights can be good in our marriage. They can make us sharper. So we're really lifting up the
If they're good
upside
fights.
of fights
Yes.
as long as they are good fights. So the next thing we're going to do is
Yes.
talk about these
We're going to talk about 3 ways.
3 ways.
3 strategies.
3 strategies
To have a good fight.
to have a good
Yes.
fight. Can you imagine? So you
Yes.
might write
Just
this
3.
down
Just
or
3.
remember it.
And all 3 we played out today.
Played out. That's a really nice way of saying
we had
lived
today,
this.
and not
This was research.
by coincidence, not
We-
by plan.
We had several of these fights and we implemented them all, and we're here to tell you that it works.
Yes.
We also probably did it yesterday and the day before. Makes it sound like we're just terrible.
No. Yeah, well, we've been.
We can string good days together. Can we?
Yes, but we always are growing through it. So, yeah, but I think we've grown a lot. Maybe we could take a break from growing.
That's right.
No,
That's right.
it's good.
All
but
right.
3 strategies for good fights. That's what we're going to talk about.
That's right. So the first one is what?
To break the cycle.
Number 1, break
To
the
break
cycle.
the cycle. Yeah.
And so,
a good one.
This is probably the biggest one. In
Mm-hmm.
any marriage, we shouldn't have to convince you of this, but you know that we all get in cycles. We get in
Yeah.
loops, not just in marriage, but in life, of course. We get going around and around. And we've got here, I don't know if you can see it, that if you want to break the cycle in your marriage, and this is, of course, a negative cycle,
Yeah,
a downward
yeah,
cycle,
yeah.
a cycle of frustration, or a cycle of resentment, a cycle of contempt, any of those things that are all very real that can come up in these times of different disagreements with one another.
Yeah.
You've got to really get to know yourself. And what that means is, well, I think you know this. Whenever we get into an argument with somebody, by virtue of what an argument is or what a fight is, you don't think that you're the problem.
No.
I don't know. Has anybody ever gotten into a fight in this world where I am convinced that I'm the problem, and that's why I'm continually, by definition, you don't ever think you're wrong.
No.
You don't ever think that you are the problem, yet there's so much personal, sometimes baggage, personal cycles, personal loops that we bring to an argument. Anything come to mind when I say that?
Well, when you said cycle, what came to my mind is that.
Did I say psycho or cycle?
Cycle.
Yeah, both can apply.
But I'm not saying psycho, but I'm saying cycle. Speaking of which, it's great for me to have on my phone, and I imagine I won't have it much longer. I'm 53, but I still have on my phone a period tracker. So that's a cycle that is helpful to know as well in your fights, because
And what does that mean?
it means
For
that
all the dumb guys out there staring at the screen, a period tracker, what would that be?
it means that I have to know what times of the month that I have to be a little bit more careful with my words, with the things I say, with the heat in my body that makes me want to blow my top, and I can be more aggressive in our fights when I am feeling that part of my cycle, which just floods me with a few more hormones that help me be a little more focused,
Yeah.
laser focused
Yeah.
on the problem, on you, and how
I'm the
you're the problem.
Yes.
So, but I think that it's wonderful. A woman's menstrual cycle is wonderful and creative, and I think there's lots of good things with that. But for some
Absolutely.
reason, when it comes to your marriage, or when I talk to lots of people in the marriage, it's not great. It's not usually we can take a lot of things and frustrations out on our husbands. So that would be, and I think that men have cycles too.
Yeah, I do.
I think when men don't have their, are hungry, there can be a little hangry cycle going on. Or maybe it's just you. I don't know.
hungry,
Maybe, you
I have
can
lots
be,
of appetites,
or
and I can get hangry in a lot of ways, right?
Oh, true.
Yeah, so
true.
there's
If
some
that
cycles
hasn't been
there.
happening enough, you can definitely
I
become
think
a
we're
little.
talking about sex. I'm not sure.
yeah.
Hide the kids. That's what we're talking about. Yeah, but yeah, there's any number
Those
of.
kind of cycles are not, but that's part of knowing yourself for
And
sure.
it's not in the world we live in. Let's be totally honest. I mean, men have hormonal issues as well.
Yes,
that
they
put
do.
them into certain mood cycles as well. You can be battling with self worth and all this kind of stuff. Not just men and women, right? Both both sides
Yeah.
can do that, and that can really be a cycle that you've got to, cop to. That you got to be able to own. This is who I am. It's maybe not who I love about myself, but this is the reality of who I am. And that is one way to break the cycle. The worst thing in any cycle is when someone is in a type of denial.
Oh.
And since we're talking about fights, a good fight is not with two people who are in denial, right? A good fight is, man, okay. And we'll talk about some other strategies that'll get you to cool down so you can own who you are, but owning who you are is really good. And then you've got to break the cycle. You got to get to know your spouse as well.
Very much.
And
Very
this
much.
is the lovely long, it's the long game. It's the
Yes.
lovely long art.
It's so true.
It starts when you get married and it goes
Yeah.
till death do you part. You never stop getting to know your spouse. I read something this week that I found very intriguing. I haven't even told you about this yet, but it says, it was talking about people who've been married, 30 years, 40 years. And if someone has been married 40 years, 50 years, I think it's Blair, someone mentioned his parents have been married so long. If you've been married to somebody, say 4 decades, the scientific argument is that you've actually been married to 4 people.
Wow.
Kind of each decade, we dramatically change who we are. And there, I bring myself back to this point about getting to know your spouse is a never-ending
That's true.
game, but it's a never-ending activity. And boy, our marriage is in trouble when you think, I know her.
Yeah.
She's just that way. Burp, I think I
So
understand her.
this has been very helpful for me, getting to know Kevin better and getting to know just his personality. It's true. I mean, I've gotten to know you more and more for every decade that we've been married, 3 decades now. And I sometimes find myself, here's a little strategy that I use under the category of break the cycle, which my cycle of communication is to be very passionate and very opinionated and very quick, and
I love it.
And impatient.
I don't love that.
And also just, frustrated if Kevin doesn't get things I'm saying quick enough, and I feel like I'm just so crystal clear in what I'm communicating.
Don't get them fast.
And so with something that I do now is when we're talking and I know, we're going into one of those conversations that could get a little bumpy, I look at him and I remember, Lisa, you're talking to his brain right now. And even today when we were having our little discussions, around planning for tonight, I was like looking at him and I was like, you're talking to his brain, not saying this to him, but
You're not talking to my muscles?
and I was even looking at his head and
Not
I just
my heart
picturing
stopping good looks?
his brain inside of his head, and I was just reminding myself
Just
that
the
his
brain.
brain works differently than your brain works, very differently.
Yeah.
And there's so much written on the subject of brains, which is fascinating. But even if you don't want to read all that stuff, which I love, but even if you don't want to, just remember when you're talking to your spouse, you're talking to their brain, and their brain doesn't work the same way yours does. The neurons aren't firing the exact same way. There's just different things from their past, all kinds of things. And even if it just slows me down, that helps me, because I can be moving at laser speed with my arguments. And I just have to remember, like, it's not fair to be talking this way, because he's not taking it in. It's not that he doesn't want to listen, but he literally is, being, what's the word? You're being.
I'm being me.
And I think
That's
also,
what happens with this brain.
And also what happens is when I start, my brain, is like a pinball machine firing, and I can start making kind of assumptions about what he's thinking. And I can sort of anticipate he's gonna say no, he's gonna not agree with what I'm saying.
Because that's what the cycles have been, right?
And so so some of the cycles that he's been in, that I start, and he's not actually thinking of saying no or not, listening to me or being mean-spirited, but anyway, I'm just saying it helps me to look at him and say I'm talking to his brain, and what a beautiful brain it is.
Thanks so much. So we're talking about having a good fight.
A good
and the
fight.
very first
Know
point
your
we're making
spouse.
here is that you've got to break a cycle. You got to get to know yourself, and you always got to keep studying your spouse. I think some good words that Lisa shared there. If you could view that other person about how does their brain work, might change the way you start to say things, might save a lot of good fights till the time that you really need them. And then, of course, to break the cycle, you've also got to be aware of your family of origin. And this is just a nod, a tip of the hat to the fact that all of us come from somewhere, and that somewhere has shaped every single one of us, and you just can't deny it. And it doesn't matter if you've come from the best family in the world or the worst family in the world. You are shaped by what you saw,
Yeah.
and you enter into marriage. Look, I've certainly got my story of great dysfunction in the family that I grew up in, as you know, Lisa, and it's very, very challenging. Even so much so at a young age, I think from what I saw, I didn't see a lot of good fights. I did see a lot of bad fights, very, very bad. I saw a lot of toxic activity, a lot of dismissiveness, a lot of stuff we've talked about in shows past as we've reached back to Dr. Gottman and his work. A lot of accusation, a lot of contempt, and even contempt in the worst kind of ways. And even as a young boy, I remember, I'm talking as a boy, maybe 6 or 7 years old, making the decision I'd never get married. Never. If this is what marriage is, I'm just not interested in it. And I kept that, honestly, that feeling all through my teen years and even as into young adulthood. And truth is, I never ever switched that until I met you, until I met Lisa. And then I thought, well, maybe it's worth the risk. But I thought, I've got a lot of work to do, though, if I could ever be a husband of any value. I don't know how to enter into a marriage like this. And so I had to make that decision that, and this is a really great thing, by the way, I'll just say this. If you're a person of faith, if you believe in God, I think you got one up on most people. Because this is really what God is all about, breaking the cycles. You think about your family of origin, and you may come, like I said, from a really great family. I think probably some people who are watching us, you've had really good marriages, and you've raised your children. But guess what for your kids, and I don't want to shock you, but even your kids are going to have to break some cycles that they saw. Our kids are going to have to break some bad cycles that they saw in mom and dad. They just are. It's just the way it is. And frankly, they're watching tonight, and don't say amen on there. Don't say yeah, Dad. I know. We know. We
but
live
they
with that
know.
pain.
They definitely know.
Long story short is, if you're someone with great dysfunction in your past, you've got to just make that decision. I've got to break the cycle. I am not a victim, even though I may have been victimized. But I'm not going to be a victim. I'm going to be an overcomer.
Yeah.
I can stop this. I do not have to be what I have always seen.
Yes.
I can be different. And boy, let me tell you something, just as it close, the greatest temptation is to fall back on this excuse. When you're in the midst of your fight, your disagreement, to fall back on this and say, it's all I know.
Yeah.
You don't understand. This is me. This is just the way I am. Don't let yourself do that. Expect more out of yourself and say, well, okay, this is the way I am right now, but I'll be better.
Yeah.
I will break this.
Yeah.
And in a good old fight that we're talking about, you're going to have to learn to really get comfortable with saying sorry a lot and saying I forgive you a lot. Don't ever get uncomfortable with those things.
Can I say something else? I think
By all
what
means.
we're really saying is it's not that you can't be yourself, but in some ways you want to be it's not that you don't want to be yourself, but you want to be your best self. And some of the things we're talking about may seem like, oh, I can't be myself, or I have to be so measured. And but this is what you do when you're in a relationship with someone you love. Is you don't want to hurt them. You don't want them to hurt you. And so, yeah, it's not that you're not yourself, but you want to be your best self.
Yes.
And so knowing yourself and knowing your spouse and knowing what's not their best self. You don't want to bring their not best self out of them in these cycles. And it's just
there's
really,
a lot of best selves in there, but that was very good.
Yeah, it's really important. We're looking for the high road in breaking the cycles. We're looking for it's contagious. When someone takes the low road, it's very contagious. And so you really want to know yourself, what triggers you, what triggers your spouse. Don't do that. Don't trigger each other. I
know it's been used in politics, but let's adopt it in our marriages, right? When someone goes low, you go high, always.
Absolutely.
And hopefully the goal is that nobody goes low on the other, but if it ever does happen, if anybody goes low, you always go high. Boy, isn't that hard to do? Yeah. But you break the cycle, it's a good way to do it. Let's keep going. The next one that we've got here,
second strategy.
Number 2.
Take a break.
Take a break.
Really important strategy in having a good fight.
It says in Proverbs chapter 18, and this is, it says brother, but brother, sister, male, female, it doesn't matter. I don't think
Yes.
this is all that gender specific. When a brother is wronged, when a person is wronged, a wronged person is more unyielding than a fortified city. Disputes are like the barred gates of a citadel. So
Yes.
you get this sort of
Yes.
the painting that's happening here is when somebody gets offended, when somebody's in a fight, when somebody's angry,
Yeah.
they become like a solid wall.
no
You can almost
compromise.
even see that physically happen in somebody when you get it, or they're like barred gates. You are not getting in, and that's the danger of just offense, right?
Yes.
Not offense, but that's a
Yeah,
barred gate.
and
but
disputes,
offense.
disputes that can't be worked out. So we want to talk right now about taking a break, and signs that we're going to describe signs that you need to take a
Yeah.
break. So you're in the middle. The first strategy, you're trying to be your best self. You're trying to bring out the best self in your spouse, but it's not going well.
And you're fighting.
And some signs that it's not going well and that you need to take a break
Yeah.
would be like you start yelling, or your spouse starts yelling.
Raising your voice.
Put downs.
We're in big trouble when we raise our voices, right?
Oh
You
my
and I.
goodness.
When we raise our voice, but when we raise our voice, we know, well, it's time to take a
Yeah.
break.
Absolutely.
We'll come back to how long that break lasts,
Yeah.
but it's time to take a break. Name calling?
Yeah, time to take a break.
And I'm not talking about, hey, cutie.
Yeah.
There's some name calling that's a lot of fun.
Not honey or
Yeah,
sweetheart.
that name
And
calling is
anything.
not good.
Maybe we're too mature to do name calling, but anything where oh, that was a put down. Like
Right.
I just
An
tried to
insult.
put you down, or you tried to put me down, or I felt the put down.
Yeah.
Belittling.
Those come out. It's time to take a break.
Yeah.
Also, the silent treatment, which is by
Yeah.
definition, I guess, taking a break. But that's the wrong way to take a break. Is to
Yes.
just put the wall up and don't acknowledge the person, give them the silent
And that
treatment.
would be knowing your spouse, knowing yourself. Sometimes one's more aggressive. One of you is more aggressive. One of you is more
Yes. Yep.
withdrawing, and because opposites attract.
Yeah.
So
It's really true. In every relationship, someone is the pursuer more. It isn't always the male. Quite often it is the male, especially though in a fight. Have you ever had the kind of fight with each other? We just did today, actually. We're really coming across bad. We're pretty good people.
No,
but have you ever had the kind of fight where you say, look, let's take a break? Yes, let's take a break. But, and a few more things. Like, easy, pursuer. Like, stop. Or else you're going to
Yeah.
make the other person, if you're going to always be the pursuer, the other person's going to flee.
yeah.
And now you're in some kind of wild animal National Geographic chase on the savannah. The gazelle is running. It's
We're
not what
so
you want,
funny.
right?
We're so funny as people. We can say, I need to take a break, and the other spouse doesn't want to take a break, but they shut up because they know we're going to take a break, and then if you are the one who asked to take a break, and they're being quiet, all of a sudden you just want to get a few more in.
A few more jabs.
It seems like
Don't do it.
I did that today. It seems like he's listening right now. So let me just put him. And now let's take a break. It can be messy, even that whole
unfair.
process of trying to take a break. But
It's unfair.
very helpful.
So
to
you
do
need
that.
to, when it comes to taking a break, you need to, our advice about taking a break, or some people call it timeouts.
Yeah.
Lisa and I don't call it timeout, quite simply because neither one of us like when the other person does this
No,
to the other
no,
person.
don't do
But
that
if that's your thing in your marriage, and
If you
guys,
both like that,
you
that's
like throwing
fine. But
flags at football games and doing that, that's entirely up to you. But we just don't like that visual, so we just say, hey, we need to take a break, or it's time for us to take a break. Trust me. Okay, we need
Yeah.
to stop right here. But this kind of activity, taking a time out or taking a break, needs to be used wisely.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
in other words, it can't be used as a type of manipulation. Right, so you've got to have some integrity when you use it. We have counseled people before who one of the couples seems to predominantly more like to yell time out or let's take a break, but it's just to squirm out of the situation. That's unwise, it's unhealthy, and frankly, it's a manipulation, and you don't want to.
And
do
using it wisely means also not just leaving the conversation and checking Facebook or social media or returning emails. We think using that time wisely is actually to go and pray, kind of think, meditate, go for a walk, clear your head, And what I love about Kevin and our relationship is that we always know each other is going to go away and think about their side, what they, take responsibility, think about what did I do there? What was I thinking? That was so dumb. And, like today when we were finished our walk, and it just like, okay, we got to take a break from this. We'll talk more later. And I knew that we were going to come back both, feeling
Humble.
yeah, I didn't want to brag, but yeah, humble. But like we have to.
We have to get humble.
We have to get humble,
The
and
relationship doesn't work unless you get humble.
yeah, and just it's just really, really important that you use that time intentionally, because we don't want to just sweep things under the carpet. Come back and we didn't really resolve anything. We didn't really take responsibility or figure some things out, which is always good to check back in with each other. And with the check-in times, you can come up with, we've heard everything from, we need to take 20 minutes, we need to take an hour, maybe this afternoon, maybe you don't even want to put a time on it, but you do
always
check in.
check back in.
Yeah.
Taking a break is not this sort of open-ended thing. Hey, we just need to take a break and I'll let you know in a couple of days how I'm feeling. Come on, don't do that.
Yeah.
That's just toxic for your relationship. So you check in, like you get some time, you need to get some perspective even sometimes. Sometimes you just need to cool right down, as Lisa's already said quite well, so I'm not going to go over that again. But then you've got to be able to check back in, whether that for you is 20 minutes, or for some of you it's like, hey, I got to go to work right now, but let's take it. But when I get back from work, it may be a more extended period of time.
Yeah.
You've got to apply some maturity here, and you've got to apply some value here. When I say value, I mean your relationship is something valuable and it's something worth working for. And your anger and your personal resentment about what's going on is not of value in comparison to that marriage. So let's keep moving here.
Yes,
We want to take a break. So the first one was the first one was what? To break the cycle. The second one is to take a break. And the third one, we said there's going to be 3, is to break through, to have a break through. And you look at the 3 points that we put up here, and I'm going to read them, and then you can sort of talk about one that you want to.
Okay.
The first one that I really like is that you don't have to, there's a lot of things that we fight about that you don't have to fight about.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Can you imagine that? But think about your own marriage. Isn't it true? Isn't a lot of things that you fight about you actually don't have to fight about?
What a relief.
But we still do. What a pain, right? So a lot of things we fight about we don't have to. The second thing is we just wrote down who's right, who's wrong, who cares. We'll talk about that in just a second. And when you fight, make sure you're fighting the right fight. If you're going to spend the time and the energy, I think that's why marriage can get exhausting for a lot of us. We seem like we're fighting all the time. It's just draining the energy out of us. And we're fighting even about things that we don't have to fight about, or fighting about the wrong things. So let's go all the way back to you don't have to fight about this. Do you want me to say something on that, or do you want to say something on that?
Yeah.
I just think of the example of little children. If you happen to be blessed to have children or little children, this is probably a good example right here. Children fight about so many things, and you as the adult, you come along as this big, tall person, and you say,
So
hey,
wise.
we don't need to be fighting about this, right? And you help them logically go, they're fighting, say, I want this. And you walk into the room and you say, let's share. You play with it for 5 minutes, and you play with it for another 5 minutes. You look like the hero. And then you turn around to your adult...
That's called negotiating.
...to your adult spouse, and you fight about things that you don't need to fight about.
We can't do it as adults, but we can do,
Just
that's so
negotiate.
true.
So
that's very true.
That's an example. There's so many things we fight about. We just don't need to be fighting about them. But you've kind of gotten into the habit. You're lazy, or you've fought so much. It's now like, well, we just have to fight. Why are we fighting? I don't know why, but just that thing.
Yeah. So, and immediately when you were talking about that, it made me think that stress, stress, that just came into my mind. And I'm going off script a little bit here, but I think stress causes us to fight, right? Obviously, Marriage Mondays and the stress, the pressure. And also we're talking about marriage. So I think it's really important to realize that when you want to change your marriage and work on it and grow, expect more fights, expect more of that iron sharpening iron, the sparks to fly, because you just raised your expectations. And so, there's more chances of you being disappointed and all of that. And also the stress in life is good. Like the first quote we shared about, you want to have an extraordinary marriage, you want to do extraordinary things, you want to have a giving marriage that helps people, other people, changes the world, whatever, there's going to be stress in that because you're trying to achieve some things, right? And so with that comes fights. But you don't have to, you can also just go, you know what, we're just stressed. We're not, we need to calm down and we need to, like you said, who's right, who's wrong, who cares?
Who cares?
Such a great quote.
That's really tough for some of us, right? Who's right, who's wrong, who's wrong, who cares? I don't think all of us are ready to say that yet. We want to give you a challenge to say that. Not like you have to go out and get a tattoo, but that'd be a great tattoo, wouldn't it? Who's right, who's wrong, who cares? That'd be a great way to live. Anyways, you will have fights. Let's just make sure you have good ones. So we talked about the fact that you've got to break cycles. We talked about the fact that you've got to take a break once in a while. And now we're talking about the fact that you've got to break through. Is there anything else you want to talk about this, or can we move on?
We can move on, yeah.
We're kind of, we're coming to an end here. That's a great thing to say when you're in a fight too, by the way. Well, we're coming to an end here. We're going to wrap this fight up.
Yes.
That's a good fight as well. You've got to say your things. I've got to say mine. We've got to apologize. I'm sorry. I went over the...
Very important that, apologies.
Yeah, let's
so
talk
important.
about that for a second.
Yeah. Very, very important.
Because that's a breakthrough, isn't it? A lot of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should just really talk about that. We don't want to assume that everybody knows how to apologize. We don't have,
I know I
assume
didn't.
that
I didn't know how to
everybody
apologize.
also knows how to forgive. So let's talk about that.
I found that very awkward when we first got married. You definitely taught me. I think Kevin's an amazing example of someone who just took seriously. My family of origin didn't teach me how to be a husband or how to be married, so I need to be very intentional about it.
Yep.
And I took a lot of things for granted because, I just grew up pretty normal and felt like I saw a great marriage growing up and certainly, have nothing to complain about in my family of origin, so to speak, although nothing is perfect. Let me just say that. Like Kevin said earlier, every family has their brokenness. Oh my goodness.
Right.
So, but I was so prideful. I think even because of that, I was so prideful, and it was really difficult for me just to give a simple, I'm sorry. So Kevin had to literally walk me through it in our first year of marriage. We've had a fight. I bounce back quickly, but I don't want to do that crunchy part of the
humility. Yeah, nobody likes that. It's true. I mean, it's so true. And who does? I don't like to do it either. But when it comes to apologies, I encourage you to do this. When you've had a fight, when you've had a bump, when you've had a misunderstanding, when you've had a disagreement, when you've had a whatever we choose to call all these things, even a complaint. And complaints do need to be registered, right? You got to say, hey, I don't like the way our marriage is going. I don't like the way our family. You can put the complaints in there, but if they ever get heated or hurtful, you got to be able to say, I am sorry. Wait, please forgive me. That's the hardest part. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, hey, sorry. It's meaningless, right? And that's the thing. You hate meaningless apologies. You hate them. So do I. But we seem to give them. So we've got to have meaning. It's got to be authenticity. When you actually apologize, it needs to be an apology. And when you ask for forgiveness, and you need to be sincere. Please forgive me. And some of us, we don't like that because we're asking for them to forgive us, or rather we're saying we're sorry just to stop the fight. We have no conviction that we've done anything wrong. So you got to get to the point where I've done something wrong, let me own it, and that goes all the way back to the first point. I've got to break this cycle about myself. I am not the king of the world. All planets don't revolve around me. I am sorry. Naturally,
I would rather just, I know I'm at fault, and I'd rather just make up for it, by being super nice or do something nice for you.
Here's $10. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
What is that? Give me a break. Here, go buy yourself something nice. That's what people do in the world. It's not what we're going to do, right? So you got to say, I'm sorry. And then here's the big one that I just don't get. When someone says, I'm sorry, please forgive me, you know what you say?
I forgive you.
I forgive you. Ugh, it makes all of our skin crawl. Well, that's good
Feels
for
weird,
us.
but it is good for us, and it's good to know you've been forgiven.
The biggest Western North American thing we say when somebody says, I'm sorry, please forgive me, here's what we always say, especially in Canada. You know what we say? That's all right.
It's okay.
What?
Yeah.
You just spent the last 45 minutes tearing the wallpaper off of somebody, and now you're going, that's all right, it's fine. It's not fine. It's not all right.
Yeah.
Am I getting a little heated here? You've got to say, hey, not just I'm sorry, please forgive me, but if somebody says that to you, look at them. This is the hardest part. It's so vulnerable. Say, I forgive you.
Yeah.
I forgive you. Then you can kiss and hug, and there's all kinds of make-up fun stuff there as well.
It's true.
So these cycles that we get in, this having a good fight, you got to break the cycle at the start. You got to take a break as well, and then you got to have some breakthroughs, and that's the fun part of good fights. Even if you have a day like we've had, which is kind of, whew, it was a rough one.
It wasn't that rough.
But they were all good fights. See, so we call, well, and isn't that kind of neat when we start calling a day of good fights? That was a rough one.
Yeah.
And we don't have to have those really ugly days where, man, I said some things today, and now I'm a hypocrite in front of this camera. I said some things I shouldn't have said. I don't know. I got contempt. I roll my eyes. I'm so tired. That stuff is some serious bad fighting. It's so toxic, and you're in trouble.
It's so great to have healthy, good fights all the time. Not all the time, but I mean, not like, all the time, right? We're going to talk about that. We don't want people hearing from this, that, oh, let's just complain all day, every day.
Please, this is an important point.
Yeah, we're not saying that at all, but just knowing that along the way, we're having good fights, and we're going somewhere with it. It's and not that it's always all resolved, but it's always brought to a place of peace and safety, where we feel safe, we feel loved, we feel accepted. That's so important, and good fights can help you to get there, help you to break through to that.
So let's summarize it up. I don't want you to look at the screen yet. I want you to listen to this. When it comes to fights and having good fights, or when it comes to disagreements that we have, listen, if you are having the kind of fights that are toxic, if you're having the fights that are physical, if you're having the fights where you're saying things that are over the line, out of bounds, rude, crude, and cruel, you are not good fighting.
No.
And that kind of fighting will destroy your marriage. It's guaranteed. If you are not having any fights, any bumps, any disagreements in your marriage, you either haven't been married and you just got married in the last couple of weeks and good for you, enjoy your honeymoon, or more importantly, or worse, you are in for trouble as well. So there's this happy medium that you find in life where you have fights, disagreements, and of course, in that happy medium, this is what we call good fights. If you find yourself registering right now and kind of discouraged as you listen to us, because I think we're on that too far end where we're saying the wrong things, we're doing the wrong things, we're being inappropriate with each other, maybe even physically attacking one another from time to time, or throwing things and stuff like that. You need some help. Listen to what we're saying right now. You need some professional help.
Yeah.
Well, we got some friends. Good. And I hope your friends are telling you you need some professional help.
Yeah.
We've just put up on the screen a couple of areas, a couple of websites you can go to. I recommend these. This is not the long, exhaustive list, not by any stretch, but there's a really great university in Toronto, if you're in the Toronto area, called Tyndale, and that's at tyndale.ca/family-life. You go there, that website could really help you if you are in need. And there's also the website for the Ontario Association of Marriage and Family Therapists. We just want to be responsible and say that to you guys as well.
There's a line between anger and abuse, and so if you're not sure, it would really benefit you to get help.
Yep. We're going to spend the last few minutes together with you and ask, or actually tell you something exciting that we're doing that we really need your help on. And as we bring our good fighting to a close here, and as we take good fighting out from here, we're going to be back. Lisa and I are going to be back next week, next Marriage Monday. We're going to be here. It's going to be 8 o'clock. It's amazing how dark it gets now.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
It's starting to be that season. We went to 8 o'clock and it was always bright out just a few months ago, but now, well, it's dark outside. But we, next week, are going to be doing something radically different. We're excited about this. Next week, we want you to ask us any question, but we want you to get those questions out actually right now, either in the chat, or we've got a website that you want to go to. You can go to it right after we're done. If you are forgetful, please go to it right after we're done and just write a question in. Any question goes. Can you see my hashtag back here? Hashtag any question goes. You can ask us anything, and we will do our best to address it next Marriage Monday. Here's what you do. Let me be painfully clear. Any question we want to hear, questions about marriage, questions about life together, questions about getting along, questions about arguing, questions about sex, questions about parenting, anything goes, right, with that. And we've got a website called www.slido.com, SLIDO.com. If you go there right now, The page will open up and it'll say there's a place for a code. Type in Marriage Monday. Marriage Monday, one word, type in all lowercase, Marriage Monday, and it will open up to Kevin and Lisa's Marriage Monday page. And there you can type in any question. You type it in, we're going to get it. Next Monday, we're going to do our best to answer I don't know if all, depends on how many questions we get, answer as many questions as you guys ask us.
And also you can put your name there if you want to, or you can, ask the question and it be anonymous. I think that you can even like other people's questions, and we'll see which questions get more traction, something like that.
Yep.
So that will be really great. And we have something special planned too, because it is the week next Monday, if you can believe it, is the week before Thanksgiving.
Canadian.
So we're gonna Canadian Thanksgiving. So we're gonna have a special kind of Thanksgiving vibe going on. But we also want you to be the Marriage Monday, the content where all your questions can be answered and have a really rich time with that Q&A together. So that's going to be really, really cool. I'm really looking forward to that.
All right, so let me make that one more time. Don't go anywhere. Just listen to this one more time. We need you to help us do next week. We cannot do next week without you.
Yeah.
We need you to throw a question to us. If you can't go to slido.com, drop it in the chat right now and we'll take it from here.
Yeah.
But if you, as soon as we get done, we'll be done in just a couple minutes. As you log off of here, go ahead and press the like button. Give us a like if you liked what we did tonight. If you didn't like what we did, give us a like button.
Please.
But either way, when you're done and you log off here, go to slido.com, type in Marriage Monday in that thing, and drop us a question. Now, maybe you're the contemplative kind of person and you're going to need a couple days to think about your question. That's okay. Take till Wednesday, maybe around Thursday.
Yeah.
We're going to close that website. So you got just a few days. If you're not live with us right now, but you're watching this a little bit later, go to slido.com. Marriage Monday, before Thursday. Drop us a question. I said it once, I'll say it again. We can't do it without you, and next week especially, we can't do it. But we're going to have fun next week. We're going to do a creative thing. Let's not tell them everything.
No.
We're going to do some fun things, and hopefully it'll work.
I was going to say also, if you are watching this and this is the first time you're watching a Marriage Monday, also press subscribe, because we're not every Monday, and that way you'll get notifications when we are going to be. Yeah.
That's right. So this has been our episode about having a good fight. We want you to have a good fight. We don't want you to have a bad one, and since you're going to have some kind of fight, make it good, right? So this has been Marriage Monday, and this is Kevin and Lisa, and
Thanks
this has
so
been
much.
our marriage,
Thank you so
and we
much.
hope it's been
It's been
yours.
great to be together.
We hope it's helped you.
Yes.